I'm Leah, and I'm an associate with ServiceWorks. ServiceWorks is a service design agency, and we're helping organizations across the UK develop cultures that prioritize people and build services that work for them. We know that nobody plans to deliver bad services, but we also know that designing good services takes a certain mindset, certain approaches, certain skills, and certain priorities to keep the focus on people and their needs. In this session, I'll be giving you a very brief overview of service design. And service design is an approach that might be interesting to you for commissioning, planning, or delivering your services. But before we start, I want to quash anyone's doubts that service design is not for you because you don't think you're a designer. We feel that anyone who has the power to impact other people's lives with the decisions they make is a designer. You may not use the word design, and you may not intentionally set out about your work using commonly accepted design processes, but you do make decisions that bring services or policies into the world. You are a designer of those services and policies, and by extension, you help design people's presents and their futures. Traditionally, there's been a clear distinction between goods and services. Goods being things that are tangible and consumable, things like paper, toothpaste, chairs, you get the idea. Services are intangible and they aren't owned by the person using them. For example, road maintenance, bin uplifts, social services. As public services grow in scale or complexity, so does the need to support them. Complex service user experiences often break because of organizational gaps or weak links in the system's ecosystem. Design has moved and grown over the years to areas of increasing complexity, from commercial spaces to public service spaces. As design has moved across areas, it has brought with it tried and tested tools and methods, which can help us understand and meet the needs of people. And when we say people, we mean service users and organizational users or staff, your workforce. The term service design was coined by Lynn Shostak, who was a bank executive in 1982. And Lynn wrote an article for the Harvard Business Review called Designing Services That Deliver. In that piece, Shostak argued that organizations should develop a better understanding of how their behind-the-scene processes interact with each other because, quote, leaving services to individual talent and managing the pieces rather than the whole make a company more vulnerable and creates a service that reacts slowly to market needs and opportunities. This is still true today, but the responsibility doesn't just sit with management, as Shostak suggested back in 1982. Practicing service design is the responsibility of many different people in an organization. And service design is not just designing a service. Service design addresses how an organization plans and delivers services. Designing a service considers all the points at which a service user or an employee comes into contact with that service. An organization's internal processes have as much, if not more, impact on a service user's experience as the visible or tangible points of interaction, for example, website, front desk, or helpline. I'm going to walk you through some important high-level elements of service design, starting with service design is led by service users. Service users are a whole range of people inside your organization and outside of your organization. A main element of service design is user research. User research encompasses a range of methods and approaches that are for the purpose of understanding the situations, motivations, goals, and needs of the people who come into contact with your services. It is a way of trying to see your services from a 360-degree perspective and to strike a balance between your business needs and your constraints and providing services that meet the needs of the people you serve. Because service design centers people and their needs, it works best as an iterative process that is nimble and responsive. This can mean short cycles of work and development and strong feedback loops with service users for continuous improvement. This way of working means putting your assumptions aside and being flexible enough to be able to respond and develop services as information unfolds, not determining what is needed up front and without input and information from service users. Collaboration is a key element of service design because it is necessary to view services holistically as parts of a whole system. Working across various silos and opening up the invitation to take part to as many people as possible can widen your view of design or redesign opportunities. It could also open up opportunities for sharing assets or resources to lower project costs or running costs, or the cost of sustainable solutions. No one wakes up in the morning and thinks, the thing I would most like to do today is contact my local authority. Instead, they have real life things that happen to them, which triggers a need. People also have a sense of where they'd like to go. They have a goal to reach. We need to map out this whole experience from the perspective of people who use the service, from their trigger to their goal. Not only the things they have to do, but also their motivations and their feelings and their pain points. This is also likely to include things that happen before or after they even interact with a public service. Without understanding these things, you won't be able to spot where things start to go wrong. This kind of mapping allows us to spot those places where things are inconsistent or unclear. And no introduction to service design would be complete without this visual. The double diamond, created and popularized by the Design Council. This is a simple visual, often used to communicate the conceptual framework of service design. It includes 4 sections, or 2 double diamonds, as a way to describe the flow of an ideal service design project. The flow is discovery, the phase where a problem, idea, or hypothesis is explored through user research, desk research, and creative thinking. This is a divergent phase, opening out to explore as widely as possible. Define. This is the phase where research is analyzed and synthesized, and where the problem framing or problem definition is tightened up. This is a convergent phase, where the wide exploration starts to narrow in. Develop. This is a phase where multiple concepts or prototypes are made through creative thinking, ideation, and various iteration cycles. This is a divergent phase, where as many concepts as possible are explored. This phase contains a lot of testing and refining. And deliver. A final concept is chosen and iterated. This is a convergent phase, where the multiple concepts or prototypes are whittled down to a solution. Now, this image is a bit of a trope, but it shows what the double diamond process can actually feel like. It is important to understand that a mindset for service design is necessary before taking it on. You'll have a much more pleasant, a much more productive experience with service design if you are open to exploration and have a tolerance for uncertainty. Service design is an approach that can give you a framework and tools to find a balance between organizational need and service user need by thinking from a service user's point of view first. This isn't just about efficiency or how pleasant it can be to use a service, but it's also about fostering relationships with your service users and making sure the impacts you have on their lives are positive. But we can't deny that taking a person-centered approach can also realize cost savings by creating things that are useful, usable, and used. Service design asks you to question and challenge your assumptions by including front-end users, service users, and back-end service users, your staff, your workforce, in the design process. Working only with your assumptions is dangerous and it's expensive. It can reinforce inequalities and inequities By not testing assumptions, you risk making decisions that benefit already overrepresented people. Taking the time and effort to understand the situations, motivations, and needs of various groups of service users can help you get a wider view and see blind spots that may reinforce inequities and inequalities. Failure demand. By assuming that things are working just fine, not looking at services holistically, and assuming you know what services are best, you risk spending huge amounts of resources on service failure demand. According to a government digital service piece of research in 2014, 80% of the cost of government is spent on services, and that's an equivalent of a third of GDP. The research also showed that 60% of that cost was spent on dealing with issues like people getting in touch to check the status of their case, getting in touch to find out how to do something because it's not been made clear enough to them. This type of unnecessary contact is often referred to as failure demand, and it represents a lot of time and money that could be better spent elsewhere. It also represents a lot of frustration and confusion on the part of citizens, and that erodes their relationship with you and as a service provider, and in some cases resulting in worse outcomes if they drop out of the system altogether. That means people might not be getting the help or the support they need. This costly avoidable contact often comes about because things are not clear or consistent across whole services. So service users trip up or get stuck and reach for the phone. Future generations thinking, taking a narrow view of how services are working or could be improved without being alive to issues and aspirations of real people, also locks you into a short view of the future. That way of working does not allow you to hear signals of future needs, future trends, and risks the long tail of bad decisions impacting people far beyond our working lives. So this is about thinking of the legacy that we might leave. And again, trust and reputation. By not involving people, by not taking a holistic view, focusing only on business need or centering business need, and taking a short view are reputational risks and risk low levels of trust among service users and communities. So some things to reflect on. What supports or hinders a service design approach in you or your organization? What assumptions do you make about what people need from your services? And how do you challenge those assumptions? Or do you challenge those assumptions? How do you understand your service users and what they need? I look forward to meeting you at our catch-up session.